Okay, so like I said, it's good to see everybody. It's the portion today this week is VaYeishev, and it's on page 226 in Eitz Chaim. Whatever edition of Chumash you have, you're looking for chapter 37 of Genesis, but we're not going to look at the very beginning. Let's turn to page 233 in Eitz Chaim, to the beginning of chapter 38. And Paul is coming in, and then I'll do the bracha for Torah study. So there we go. Okay. So Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shekidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. So, like I said, we're VaYeishev, and I want us to start with chapter 38. We might have time to get back to before, but I want to spend time on this chapter, which is a story in and of itself within the bigger story of the Parsha. So, chapter 37 really begins a story that goes to the end of Genesis, and that is with through chapter 50. So 13 chapters about Joseph and his family. Okay, so the focus is on Joseph now through the end of Genesis, and this becomes, as the commentary points out, the longest narrative section, independent narrative section within the book of Genesis. Okay. So we're introduced to Joseph as having dreams that really annoy his brothers. In fact, to the point in which the Torah describes that the brothers hate Joseph for having these dreams, in which it's clear, at least to Joseph and how the Torah is presenting it, as Joseph is supreme over all his brothers and even over his parents. Right, you have sheaves of wheat that are bowing down to one sheaf of wheat, and you have planets and stars and the sun, stars and the sun and the moon bowing down to one star, and it's interpreted as the star and the one sheaf as being Joseph. And he also receives a special cloak that nobody else receives from his father Jacob, a coat, ketonet pasim, which literally means a coat of stripes, at least in modern Hebrew. Pas is a stripe. It's always translated as it could be translated as the Technicolor dream coat, as Andrew Lloyd Webber did, or a coat of many colors, whatever it is. So we're then told that the brothers are off shepherding the sheep, and Jacob wants Joseph to go with them. And a man, an anonymous man, as Joseph is looking for where his brothers are, tells him where they are. And then the brothers see that he is coming. The brothers want to kill him. Reuben says, no, don't kill him. Judah says, oh, here's a caravan, an Ishmaelite caravan coming. Let's sell him. Oh, no, let's throw him in a pit first, and let's sell him to the Ishmaelite caravan. So that's where we now find ourselves at the start of chapter 38. Joseph gets sold to Potiphar, a courtier of Pharaoh and his chief steward. That's the last verse of chapter 37. So now chapter 38. Vayehi ba'etahi. And it was at that time, or as the English says here, about that time, okay, or around that same time, Vayered Yehuda me'et echav. Judah left his brothers, and Vayet ad ish adulami, and it says here he camped, he set up camp by a certain Adulamite man. So here, the above the line commentary is the commentary that helps us understand the words or geography or whatever. So here, Adulamite, a man of the city of Adulam, which is in the northern sector of the Judean lowland, about 9 miles northeast of modern Beit Guvrin. Okay, so modern Beit Guvrin. Beit Guvrin, if you've ever been to Israel on a guided mission or a family mission, Beit Guvrin is the place to go to actively participate in an archaeological dig. There are caves there. You go down into a cave and you're given a bucket and a spade, and maybe some of us have participated in that. I've done that many times myself. That's where Beit Guvrin is. So 9 miles northeast of that. So it's around the city of Jerusalem today, Adulam, according to this commentary. So he camps by a certain Adulamite whose name, whose shemo, Chira. So he lives near Chira. Vayar Sham Yehuda. There Judah sees Bat Ish Kanaani, a daughter of a Canaanite man, Ushemo Shua. The Canaanite man's name is Shua. Vayikacheha vayavo eleha. So Judah marries a Canaanite woman. He marries her, vayikacheha. He takes her, but in this context, it means he marries her. So in other words, I'm using the modern concept of marriage and applying it to this word here. In biblical times, taking her means acquiring her. So women became, the agreement in biblical times was between a man and another man about the man's daughter in order to acquire that daughter as the man's wife. So A meets B and wants B's daughter. A comes into agreement with B to take B's daughter. So that's what marriage was like then. Okay, Vayavo Eleha. So, and he came to her, which means he consummated the agreement. Vatahar Vateled Bain, Vayikra et Shemo Er. So has a son whose name is Er. Vatahar Od Vateled Bain. She has another. She becomes pregnant and has another son. Vatikra et Shemo Onan, and his name is Onan. So this Canaanite woman who Judah takes to wife has Er and Onan. Vatosef Od Vateled Ben. So she has another son. Vatikra et Shemo Shelah. So Er, Onan, and Shelah. V'haya b'chziv b'lidata oto, and she was in the town of Chziv. Also, so the commentary suggests that this is southwest of Adulam. We really don't know for sure. So anyway, it's this Canaanite woman who Judah marries is in Chziv and has 3 sons, Er, Onan, and Shelah. Vayikach Yehuda Isha le'er. So now Judah wants to marry off his son Er. Okay, so imagine now, this is like 20 years worth of time, 18 years, however, whatever the age is at that time for people to take a wife. He's in this town for a long time. Enough time for Er to be old enough to get married. Would the children be considered Israelite Jewish by the rabbis? Lori is asking about these children. So, okay, that's an interesting question. In Torah, according to the Torah, it is as long as your father is an Israelite, that's all that matters for you to be considered an Israelite. Okay, so Moses married a Midianite woman. Judah here marries a Canaanite woman. It's very interesting. It's only later in the Bible, in the book of Ezra, where this reverses, and where in the book of Ezra, the mother determines the religion of the child. Okay, so so in Jewish law today, father determines your tribal status, that is, whether you're a Kohen, Levi, or Israelite, and mother determines whether you're Jewish or not, unless you convert to Judaism. Okay, so you either can convert to Judaism or your mother has to be Jewish. That's according to Orthodox and conservative Jewish law. According to Reform Jewish law, mother or father can determine the Jewishness of the child as long as the family has a Jewish home. Okay, so a Reform rabbi can officiate at an intermarriage, and child of non-Jewish mother can be considered Jewish as long as the family agrees to have a Jewish home. Okay, so the Reform movement reverts back to Torah law. But this all gets to, Lori, thank you for bringing this up. I would have brought it up at the end of the chapter. It brings up, because we'll ask the question what this story is doing here. Okay, so hold this thought as we go through the story. Okay, why do we have a story of Judah marrying a Canaanite woman, having 3 sons? Okay, and let's see what happens. So he's in this town with this Canaanite woman for, let's say, 18 years until he looks for a wife for Er. So Vayikach Yehuda isha le'er bechoro. Judah acquires a wife for his oldest son Er, Ushema Tamar, and her name was Tamar. Nice Jewish name. Okay, a lot of Jewish kids in Israel and outside of Israel have their daughters named Tamar. Vayehi Er Bechor Yehuda, Er, the oldest son of Judah, Ra be'enei Adonai. He was evil in the eyes of God. Vayemitehu Adonai, and God killed him. What did he do wrong? We have no idea. So a whole theological discussion can ensue about what Er did, what he could possibly have done. Right, and our below the line commentary doesn't help explain it, what he did. It's only a comment about just how to understand unnatural death. Okay, somehow Er dies, and it's understood by the Torah narrative as Er dying because he was seen as evil by God and had to be put to death. Okay. The only impact for us in the story is that Er dies, and now what is Tamar supposed to do? Vayomer Yehuda le'Onan. Judah says to Onan, this is son number 2. Remember, Er, Onan, and Shelah. So Judah says to Onan, Bo el eshet achicha, go to the wife of your brother, v'yabeim ota, enter into a yibum relationship. Those of us who have been studying the Daf Yomi, the page a day study of Talmud, will remember Yevamot as a tractate several months ago. And Yevamot is all about this idea taken right here in the Torah, right here. If a husband and wife, husband dies while husband and wife were childless, then according to Jewish law, husband's brother must marry the widow. Okay, so you have brother A, you have A and B, 2 brothers, A and B. A is married to C. Okay, A is married to C, no children. A's brother B has to marry C, have a child, the child is legally the child of A. The next child would be considered the child of B. Okay, get that? A marries C, A dies, no children between A and C. B has to marry C. Child of B and C belongs to A. Next child and subsequent children belong to B. Okay, that's the idea of a what's called a levirate marriage. I don't know why it's translated as levirate. Yes, Barbara.
Does that make any difference if the first child is a girl?
Interesting. Okay, so I don't pay close attention when I study the page a day of the Talmud, especially to law that is irrelevant today. The whole tractate of Yevamot is irrelevant today. Nobody, according to non-Orthodox. I want to clarify that statement. My daughter Eliza has a very good friend. Her name is Aviva. Aviva has a brother, tragically, who had brain cancer and died. The brain cancer brother was married shortly before he was diagnosed with brain cancer. So he suffered tremendously for 3 years with brain cancer, then died. The widow, so to get out of marrying the brother, there is a ceremony called chalitza. Okay, so in my example, A marries C, A dies, B has to marry C. While B doesn't have to, he can get out of it by, or C could get out of marrying B. Let's say the woman doesn't want to marry the brother. There's a whole other extenuating circumstances here. What if A is a Kohen? And what if B had been, what if B's wife, because you're allowed to have more than one wife, what if B's wife happens to be C's sister? You can't marry a sister. So there are a lot of extenuating circumstances and unbelievable circumstances that could happen here. But if B does not want to marry C, there's a ceremony called chalitza, where C takes off B's shoe and spits in it and says a formula, some words, saying, I do not want to marry B, and I do not want to thereby ensure an heir for dead A. Okay, so in modern times now, Eliza's friend Aviva, whose sister-in-law is a widow, had to perform a chalitza with Aviva's other brother, so that her sister-in-law, the widow, could be free to marry whoever she wants. Outside of the Orthodox world, we don't do this. We just don't do chalitza. But if you go to any Jewish museum around the world, any Jewish museum, you'll see in the display case of objects from this town that go back a couple hundred years, you'll see a shoe that's called the chalitza shoe. So this ceremony was done until modern times or pre-modern times around the Jewish world. Outside of the Orthodox world, it's not done anymore. We just, A marries C, and tragically A dies. C is free to marry whoever she wants. So, but it all stems from this story right here, that this serves as the example in Jewish law, which is later in the Torah, it's talked about. Okay, so Judah tells Onan that he has to marry Tamar. And v'yabemota v'hakem zera achicha, and establish a descendant for your brother, for your dead brother. That's what Judah says to Onan, to make sure that heir would have an heir. Ayin Resh would have an H-E-I-R. Okay, 9. Vayeda Onan. Onan knew Ki lo lo yihiyeh hazara, because for him that descendant would not belong to him. So Onan knew that the descendant would not belong to him. So that child would belong to his dead brother. So he would have no authority over him. He wouldn't be able to leave any property to him. V'haya im ba'im el eshet achiv v'shichet arza levilti natan zeral achiv. And it came to pass that he decided not to consummate the marriage. I'm going to do this as G-rated as possible. He decided not to consummate the marriage with Tamar, and it went to waste. That is, the lack of consummation went to waste without providing a descendant for his brother. Okay, you get it? Read the English translation for the non-G-rated translation. Okay, Vayera 10. Vayera be'enei Adonai, and this was found to be evil in the eyes of God. Asher asa, what he did. Vayamet gamoto, and God killed also him. So we have no idea what was evil in God's eyes about Er, for God killing Er, but now we know what's evil in God's eyes concerning Onan, and this is why God killed Onan. Okay, now 11. Vayomer Yehuda Tamar kalato. Judah says to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, Shavi almana beit avich, sit as a widow in your father's house, ad yigdal Shelah beni, until my son Shelah gets old enough, grows old enough. Ki amar pen yamut gamhu ke'echav, because he said maybe he also will die like his brothers. Vatelech Tamar vateshev beit aviha, and so Tamar went and sat in her father's house. Okay, why couldn't Judah take care of her? No, according to Torah law, according to even to biblical law and even early rabbinic law, girls belong to their father until they're married, when they belong to their husband. Okay, so girls are supported either by their father or by their husband. So if father dies, all children then before marriageable age are poor and are disadvantaged, and which is why the Torah talks about the need to support the widow and the orphan in the community, because it's the father, the man, that supports everyone in the family. So boys will become men, and they will inherit, and they will have property to work with. But girls have nothing. They're dependent on their father to support them, or their husband to support them. So now Tamar doesn't have a husband. And she doesn't have a child. So a woman could be supported by her children if she doesn't have a husband. She's divorced or widowed, but she doesn't have a child, but she has a father. And Judah says, go back to your father and wait until Shelah gets old enough, and then you'll marry him. Okay, so this is the whole family situation here that just highlights for us what the nature of family life was like, and how families are formed in the time of the Torah and in the time of the Bible. Okay, how much women are at the mercy of the men in their lives. And I can add to that how terrible that is. Okay, not necessarily terrible here in the Torah. That added comment isn't there, but we have this story to kind of highlight this. Yes, Lori.
Yeah, I was just wondering if that line about wasting, is that foundational for Jewish law? Because
Yes,
yeah,
it is. It's all about birth control. Yes. So when it comes to Jewish views of birth control, it's all about this, not having it go to waste. Why doesn't the text name Judah's wife? Saul is asking. It's enough that she's Canaanite, and it gets to the end of the story about what this means for the future of the Jewish people. So we'll hold that thought, which goes with Laurie's thought also about, why is or does the fact that she's Canaanite impact their Jewishness? So we'll get to that at the end of the story. But the idea of going to waste. So there's a question and as to whether a condom on the man's part, or a diaphragm, or an IUD on the woman's part is Jewishly, halachically acceptable. And depending who you talk to, because unless husband and wife already have fulfilled the responsibility of being fruitful and multiplying, that is, having 2 children, birth control, according to the Orthodox or the ultra-Orthodox, should not be utilized. That the idea of being married is to have children, not just to have sex, but to have children. So now it's not G-rated anymore. I just made it PG. The idea then is that for some, with the invention of the pill, using the pill is okay. By most authorities, according to Jewish law, it's a pill that the woman takes, and then they're normally relating intimately, sexually, and the fact that she's not getting pregnant is no fault of the man, and it's not technically going to waste because they are consummating their marriage. It's just that the pill makes it secondarily ineffective, as opposed to primarily ineffective with the use of a condom or an IUD or a diaphragm. Okay, these are splitting hairs, as Jewish law does all the time, and it allows for couples to have a child when they want to have a child, so that that child then would be raised with love and acceptance, as opposed to no birth control, and then supposedly an accident happens with a pregnancy, and then perhaps prompting emotional, mental anguish in the relationship. Okay, so I think that's all I want to say about this. But yes, there's a number of things related to Jewish law that come out of this story. Okay, so levirate marriage and also birth control, and the Jewish views of birth control come out of this. And the fact for the rabbis that Onan doing what he did, wasting the seed, as being seen as evil in God's eyes, adds to the rabbi's view of birth control. Okay, all right, verse 12. We'll see if we get through the story, because I really do want to get through the story, because about the genealogy that happens at the end. Vayirbu hayamim. So the days went along, and a number of years passed. Don't know how many years passed. Vatamot bat Shua eshet Yehuda vayinachem Yehuda. So this unnamed daughter of Shua, the wife of Judah, dies, and Judah was when his mourning was over. Vayinachem Yehuda is translated as when his mourning was over. Vaya'al al gozazet sono. He went to the sheep shearers. He and Hira, his friend, right? Hira the Adulamite, next to whom he's camped. So Hira and Judah go to the sheep shearers, Timnata, to Timnah. So Timnah, if it's Timnah in Israel today, it's way south near Eilat. So that's a heck of a trip to go. So we don't know. Here it says it's west of Beit Shemesh. So if it's just west of Beit Shemesh, it's not far from Beit Guvrin. Okay. So, Vayugad LaTamar Lemor, it was told to Tamar, Hine Chamich Ole Timnata Lagos Sono. Here's your father-in-law coming to Timnah to shear his sheep. Vatasar Bigdei Almenuta, she took off her widow clothes, Me'aleha, from her, Vatechas Batseif, and she covered herself with a scarf or some other kind of, or a hijab, or some other garment like that, because Rebecca had a seif, which she put on when she saw Isaac in the distance. So it's some kind of feminine garment related to marital status. So she put on this saif batit alaf. She took off, and she covered her face with a veil. So that saif is translated as a veil. Okay, she covered herself with a veil. Bateshev befetach einayim, and she sat at the entrance to Einayim. Right, so at the where the road enters the town, Asher al derech Timnata, which is on the way to Timnah, ki ra'ata ki gadal Shelah, because she knew that Shelah was old enough, v'hilo nitna lo leisha, and she wasn't given to him as a wife yet. So she wants to confront Judah, saying, "Hey, it's time for me to come back home. Give me Shelah." Vayir'eha Yehuda, Judah sees her. Okay, again, she's dressed up with this veil. She's covered. She sees her, meaning we know who her is. We know that she's Tamar, but it's unclear that Judah knows it's Tamar. Okay, again, the story is told from the narrator's perspective. So we know who everybody is, but it's unclear that Judah knows who everybody is, because Judah's not the narrator. Judah sees this woman who's at the entrance to Einayim on the way to Timnah. So he sees her, and Vayachsheveha lezona, and he thinks that she's a prostitute, ki chista paneha, because she covered her face, which apparently, according to the story, is the way that prostitutes are dressed in that time. Vayet eleha el haderach, the same yet. So in verse 1, it's translated as camped near the certain Adulamite, and here vayet is translated as turned aside or turned toward her. So that's why I wasn't sure that camped by the Adulamite man in verse 1 is the appropriate translation for vayet. He came up to or approached. So he approached her, El Haderach, on the way, Vayomer, and said, Havana avo elayich. So he arranged a transactional arrangement with her, right? Because he thinks she's a prostitute. Kilo yada ki chalatohi, because he didn't know that she's his daughter-in-law. Vatomer, she says, she knows who he is. He doesn't know who she is. She's dressed as a prostitute in this way of confronting Judah. So she says, Mati tenli kitavo elai. What are you going to give me for being with me? Vayomer anochi ashalach gedi izim. He said, I'll send along a kid of the flock, but give me collateral until this kid arrives. In other words, this is Judah. He has flocks of sheep with him. He has shepherds with him. They're taking care of the flock. He's going ahead or maybe he's come behind. So he doesn't have the sheep or the goats with him. So he sees the prostitute and promises a goat for their time together, and she says, "No, I want some collateral in the meantime." And 18, Vayomer ma ha'eravon. What would be this collateral? Asher atein lach, that I would give to you. Vatomer, she said, Chotamcha ufeti lecha. I want your seal and your cord. Okay, so the signet ring and your cord. So these are identifying features. Umatcha asher biyadecha, and the staff that is in your hand. So the signet ring, the cord, and the staff are all identifying features for Judah, and supposedly every man would have such uniquely identifying features. Vayitain la, and he gave it to her. So this is the collateral that he gave her. Vayavo eleha vatahar lo. So I'm not sure of the timing here, right? He came to her, and then what? He waited around until she conceived, right? She conceived. How does he know? So enough to be said in that I would imagine when a man is with a prostitute, he doesn't hang around long enough to know whether she has gotten pregnant or not, right? Takes a few weeks to understand that. That's in modern times with a pregnancy test. In ancient times, it's 3 months until the woman starts showing. You don't, okay. Yes, it could be a month, right? They do know whether the monthly cycle has happened or not. But you don't know after the first time. So it could be a couple of months until you know. So what's he doing hanging around, right? So just the timing here, so he came to her and he impregnated her. So the narrator is just telling us that this was the encounter led to pregnancy. 19. Vatakom vatelech vatasar tzeifa. She got up, went, and took off her veil. Me'aleha. She took off her veil. Vatilbash bigdei almenuta, and she put on her widow garments again. All right. So intentionally doing this, Tamar is in order to confront Judah, and we'll see what happens with this confrontation. Verse 20, Vayishlach Yehuda et gedi ha'izim. Judah sends the goat, so he promised the goat as payment, sends the goat along, biyad re'ehu ha'adulami, with his Adulamite friend, lakachat ha'eravon miyad ha'isha v'lo mitza'ah. So right, he sends the goat and he wants to get the collateral back. Right, so he sends his friend, the Adulamite friend, and he doesn't find the woman. Where's the woman? Where did she go? Right, well, where did she go? She dressed as a widow again. So he couldn't find where this prostitute was. Vayishal et anshe mekoma lemor ayeh hakadesha hi va'inayim al hadarech. So he asks the people of the place, saying, "Where's this kadesha?" Another word for the prostitute. That was here at Einayim on the road. They said there was no such prostitute here. In other words, right? People knew where the prostitutes were, and there's no prostitute here. Tamar dressed up as a prostitute just to encounter Judah, so she wasn't there long enough for people to know that she's the prostitute that sits there at that place. Vayashav el Yehuda, the friend comes back to Judah. Vayomer lo mitzatiha, I couldn't find her. V'gam anshe hamakom amru lo hayata v'zeh kadesha, and also the people of the place said there was no such prostitute there. Vayomer Yehuda, verse 23. Vayomer Yehuda tikachla pen nihiyah lavuz. He said, let her keep them, lest we become a laughing stock. So, okay, so Judah says to his Adulamite friend, okay, you looked, we're not going to make a federal case out of this because I'll be a laughing stock. In other words, he knew it was wrong as a widower to be with a prostitute. That's not what Judah, a man of his stature, should not have done that. So he tried to send his friend instead of him himself to take care of business. It's like, imagine a mafia boss. The mafia boss doesn't do everything himself. He has the lackeys doing things for him. So here, or if we don't want the negative image of a mafia boss, we could a king of a place, or a wealthy person. The wealthy person doesn't get his hands dirty. He has other people get his hands dirty for him. So he has the Adulamite friend do the dirty business of handling this business with a prostitute. And he said to the friend when he came back, okay, that's enough. I'm not going to worry about the collateral. I'm wealthy enough. I can get another signet ring, cord, and staff. Don't worry about it, because I don't need this getting out on social media. People don't need to be out on Twitter that Judah has slept with a prostitute. 23. Right. I did. I acted in according to free will. I did my share of the bargain. I sent the goat. You couldn't find her. Okay, too bad. 24. At the end of 3 months, it was told to Judah, saying, your daughter-in-law Tamar has prostituted herself, because Tamar is supposed to be a widow, staying as a widow, keeping herself keeping herself private until Shelah is ready. So she shouldn't have been sleeping around. And here, at 3 months, she's showing, and therefore, what else could it have been other than prostituting herself? The Gam Hinech Hara Liznunim, and here she become pregnant as a result of her prostitution. Vayomer Yehuda Hotziuha Batisaref. Judah says, bring her out and have her burned. Another aspect of Jewish law here: anyone who commits adultery is executed by burning. Okay, there are 4 methods of execution: strangulation, burning, stoning, and decapitation. Okay, don't want to get into this right now, but Tractate Sanhedrin in the Mishnah specifies all of the kinds of capital crimes and the associated manners of execution. So adultery, the execution for adultery is burning. Okay, and the method that the rabbis came up for burning is molten wax being dripped down into down the throat. So you're burning the insides, not the outside. Okay, sounds lovely. 25. He mutzeit, she was brought out. The he shalcha el chamiha lemor. So she's brought out to be executed, to be burned to death. And she says, hold on right there. She sends word to her father-in-law, just 1 second, father-in-law, before you execute me for being a prostitute. Leish asher elalo anochi hara. Whoever is the owner of these things, the signet ring, the cord, and the staff, whoever owns these things is the father of this child that I'm pregnant with. Vatomer hakerna lemiha chotemet v'hapetilim v'hamateha ele. And she says, see if you recognize who is the owner of this ring, the cord, and the staff. Being clever Tamar. Vayaker Yehuda, Judah does recognize it. Vayomer, and he says, Sadka mimeni, she has been more just than I. Ki al kain lo netatiha l'Shelah b'ni, because I did not give her to Shelah, my son. V'lo yasaf od ledata, and he did not consummate their relationship anymore. So, Judah, let's clear this up. First, it's 11:45. We only have a few minutes left, and we're going to get to the genealogy in a moment. But I just want to lay this out. Judah's married to a Canaanite woman. They have 3 kids. 2 of them die, leaving Tamar a widow and waiting around for the 3rd son to marry. While waiting around, she gets disgusted waiting around. She's like a persona non grata, having to go back home to her father's house. She had been in the home of the wealthy Judah, and now she's back at her father's house. She doesn't like how she's treated. She doesn't like that she has to wait around. So she takes matters into her own hand and sleeps with her father-in-law in disguise and embarrasses him in public. We imagine that this is happening in public because he's about to execute her, and that's a public. So before she's executed, people are around, and whoa, hold on a second. So you could imagine the drama. This would be a great movie or made-for-TV movie. The drama here at the last second, as she's about to be tied to the stake, and they're gathering the wood around her and about to light it to burn her to death. Hold on a second. I have a signet ring and a cord and a staff here. This will prove who the father is of this child. And Judah recognizes it and says, "You're right." So instead of killing her, he recognizes that he's done wrong and recognizes that she's right in what she did. So this is fascinating that an act of prostitution on her part is considered right by Judah. And not only is it considered right by Judah, it's in the Torah, so therefore it's considered right by the Torah for her doing this. So there's commentary below the line about this as well that says that Tamar's actions here are seen as righteous according to the Torah, that she's taking matters into her own hand in this way and doing this. Now this gets to the genealogy here. So let's get to the as to add to the import of this story and who these people end up being vis-a-vis Jewish history. Vayehi ba'et lidata, when she was giving birth, vehine te'omim bevitna, she has twins inside her womb. Vayehi v'lidata, so as she's giving birth, vayitein yad, one of them puts his hand out, vatikacham yaleret, the midwife, takes vatikshor al yado shani, and puts on his hand a red thread, leimor ze yatsa rishona, to identify that this one's coming out first. The one who put his hand out puts a red thread around it. Midwife said, this is coming out first. But he brought his hand back in. But the other one then became born first. The one without the red thread was born first. Vatomer, ma paratsta alecha paretz. How did you break out this way in such a way? Vayikra shemo paretz. So they named him Peretz, the one without the red thread, who got born first, was born Peretz. V'achar yatsa achiv, asher al yado ashani, vayikra shemo Zarach. And his name was, so the second one with the red thread, his name is Zarach. Okay, this is the end of this story that comes a parenthetical story in the middle of the bigger story. So what's the genealogy here? If we had the book of Ruth in front of us, we would know at the end of the book of Ruth there's a genealogy. Ruth marries Boaz, right? Another kind of levirate marriage there, because Boaz is the surviving kinsman to Ruth's dead husband's family, marries Boaz. Who's Boaz? Boaz is none other than the grandson of Peretz. Peretz, so Judah, Peretz, a couple more generations, and then it's Boaz. I don't remember all the names. Look in the Bible for the names. That's Boaz, okay? So Peretz becomes an ancestor of Boaz. Why is that important? Because Ruth and Boaz's great-grandson is King David. Okay, so with the 10 minutes that we have left, the story went, I don't want to get into when this story was written then. Was it written at the time of the people of Israel and the nation of Judah? Or was it written as the Torah seems to present it as hundreds of years before that? What is clear in the story is the supremacy of Judah. We are all Jews, right? Because we are from the tribe of Judah. Judaism, Judah, tribe of Judah. all Jews are tribe of Judah. Unless you're a Kohen or a Levi, then you're the tribe of Levi. Only 2 tribes left from the 12 tribes of Israel. So either as a Kohen or a Levi, you're a Levi. If not, you're a tribe of Judah. And if you convert to Judaism, you're a tribe of Judah. Okay, so what does this say then about our heritage? Our heritage is mixed. Because our heritage, we come from Judah and a Canaanite woman. Okay, that's number one. We're coming from Judah and a Canaanite woman. So all descendants of Jews, all Jews today are descended from Judah and a Canaanite woman. And the Messiah that we pray for, every single day, right? That we should return in the time of the Messiah to the land of Israel. The Messiah, who is the Messiah? Mashiach ben David, the Messiah, son of David, descended from King David. So the Mashiach that we pray for is descended from King David. And who's King David descended from? A Moabite woman. So not only is there a Canaanite woman, that's bad, because the Torah says we annihilate the indigenous population of the land of Israel. When we enter the land of Israel, all the Canaanites, they're idolaters. Not allowed to marry a Moabite, says in the book of Deuteronomy. A Moabite and an Ammonite should not enter your community. So no Moabites, no Canaanites. Okay, and who is Moab? Moab, none other, because we learned this earlier in the book of Genesis. Where does the nation of Moab come from? Remember when Lot ran out of Sodom and Gomorrah for his life with his family? His wife turned around, became a pillar of salt. Lot is left with his 2 daughters. They end up in a cave. The daughters say, no more humanity. What's going to happen to the future? Let's sleep with dad. Okay, so now we became R-rated. Let's sleep with dad and have children with him. They get him drunk. One sleeps with him one night. The other sleeps with him another night. They both become pregnant. Who do those children become? None other than the nation of Moab and Ammon. So the Messiah is descended from Moabites, a result of an incestuous relationship and a forbidden marriage of Moab, of a Moabite woman and an Israelite man. And so there's another way that the rabbis split hairs. An Israelite woman, to fulfill the commandment of the Torah, an Israelite woman is not allowed to marry a Moabite man, but an Israelite man is allowed to marry a Moabite woman, because paternity is the inheritance goes through the father. Tribal status goes through the father. So it's the Israelite man that determines who he can marry, and so he cannot marry a Moabite woman. But Ruth, he can marry. An Israelite man can marry a Moabite woman, but a Jewish woman cannot marry a Moabite man. Okay, even though the Torah says pretty generally a Moabite should not enter into the Jewish community, that's how the rabbis understand it, because you have the book of Ruth. And you have to deal with that. So the story that's here in the Torah, here in chapter 38, which is not really taught in Jewish day school, you can understand why. And the story of Lot and his daughters in the cave is also not taught in Jewish day school. So these stories, why are they here? To lend an interesting, if not challenging, view as to who we are as a Jewish people. And I would argue that this teaches for a more acceptance of the other as part of the Jewish community. In other words, that we should not be thinking that we are better, that we Jews are an insular community, and that we need to look down on non-Jews, see them as second best, second-class citizens, worthless kind of people. As opposed to that, we have this story, which we just read, to highlight, maybe we should not be thinking that way about other people, and perhaps there could be some value to them. And in fact, look at this story, because none other than the greatest of all Jewish people, King David, descended from such a relationship of Judah and a Canaanite woman, Judah sleeping with his daughter-in-law, and the daughter-in-law who played a trick on the father-in-law, and this is where part of King David's heritage comes from. So it's a bizarre story, fascinating to highlight, to explain who Judah is in the context of this story, and then who Judah, the nation of Judah, and the people of Judah, the Jews, the Jewish people, where we come from. And we come from not so pure beginnings. And as a result of that, that needs to inform what kind of people we are today. Questions or comments about this? Yes, Saul.
I have a couple. One was it said that Tamar was told that Judah was coming to see the sheep shearing.
Right.
Who told her? Is there any stories about that?
I don't know. It's possible that in Midrash there could be an actual
That's what I'm
person
wondering.
who spread the news. But in the context of the story, it would be a big deal that Judah had a lot of flocks, so people would know, Judah's coming with all his flocks because it's sheep shearing time, and this is where the sheep shearing is happening. So word got to her. So you could translate it as word got to her, as opposed to a specific person telling her. But in Midrash, probably there's a specific person telling her.
And why was Hira named? I mean,
That's an interesting question. Why was the friend Hira named, but the daughter of Shua not named? One part could be, women are insignificant until they do something significant. Okay, so Tamar, why is Tamar named? So who cares who Judah's daughter-in-law is? But she's significant because of what she does in the story, so therefore she's named. The daughter of Shua, who's Judah's wife, it's secondary. We don't need to know.
You should unmute yourself.
He is unmuted, Mom, and
Hi there.
So women are named only when they become significant. So Tamar is significant to the story, so that's why she's named. Lori, and then we have to end.
Yeah, just a quick comment. It's just very striking from the story how Judah recognized that she was more right than
Yes,
he was. And I'm wondering, is that the first time, because I'm trying to reflect back, that somebody actually, in a sense, repented for wrong? Or
no, it's not the first time. Yeah, so now being put on the spot, I'm sure there are other stories in which a person recognizes what that they had done was wrong. And I mean, the whole Jacob story, right? Jacob stealing the blessing from his father and then being cheated on again, so by his father-in-law Laban, so that perhaps Jacob understanding or learning that way through life experience what he did was wrong. But there are other such stories in the Torah and in the Bible. Okay, so we have to end here for today. We'll go on to another.
May I quickly point out that there's an English word, onanism. It's
Yes.
based on the name Onan, which is defined as the activity that he engaged.
Right, that Onan did. Yes, right. Yes. So there's that. So a lot of things we learn from the story halachically and also etymologically. Okay. Have a good day, everybody. Okay.
Thank you.